Welcome back to another episode of the Franchising 360 show. She is Danielle Wright, and I am Tim Parmeter, and we are the host of, again, the Franchising 360 show. Every Friday night, we're going to take a 360-degree look at the franchising industry. Franchising is typically not what people think it is, and we're going to educate you on all the things. Things like, should you own a franchise? And if so, how do you know which is the best one for you? Once you are a franchise owner, we're going to talk about strategies to help you grow and succeed, as well as we're going to show you how to take your existing business and turn it into a national or even international brand. Yes, that's possible. We have a guest joining us later on the show. That's going to be awesome. This guest has been in franchising for over a decade, working for franchisors, is now also a franchisee about to launch her business. We're going to chat with her about her life on the inside of the franchise and hear her journey to get a new franchise open. So Danielle, we hear all the time in franchising, you even said it, I think maybe on our very first show, once you get into franchising, you don't really leave, right? You described it as, I think, the mob.
Yes, I was told pretty early on, joining franchising is like joining the mafia. You never leave until you die.
Right. Less murder and extortion, typically in franchising.
Yes,
Typically,
to our knowledge.
to our knowledge. Why do you think that is once people get in? Because almost everybody, and I know our guest today is going to say this too, kind of get into franchising randomly, like we did.
Right.
But then we all just stay or we move around. Why is that?
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I stay. I think on the first episode we talked about it's just a really good community. You create friendships. It's not like, hey, I take a job and I'm staying because I don't really want to go anywhere else. If we don't stay specifically in what we do, as you have shared my resume on this show, I've stayed in franchising and I've worked in a bunch of different verticals within the industry. So I think that's what you do. You challenge yourself. You look at a different part of the industry, whether it's operations, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's sales. But once you know a little bit, you know a lot in our world. And so you can kind of be diversified within it as it is.
And I think even when people have a job and you're working for a franchisor, whether you're doing franchise development or you could be in the back office with, operations, marketing, whatever, there's a certain level of entrepreneurship even as an employee. So I think there tends to be kind of that freedom factor as well.
Yeah, you get excited. Like you get excited for other people, right? It's really, there's a strong emotion to this business because you're either like you're helping someone find their better tomorrow,
Right.
or you're helping that person decide this is the right opportunity for them. And so you get to go on the journey, less my dollar to do it, but it kind of, you get to go what I call sidecar with someone on their next steps. And when they're venturing out for themselves, how cool is that? Like you just get to participate in that.
It is it's totally cheesy, but we really are helping people change their lives from a franchise owner standpoint, just having that overall control of their existence moving forward.
Yeah, and even on the franchisor side, you speak a lot to what it means to be a franchisee. I speak a lot of how does that impact the franchisor? Why do you want to take your business and turn it into a franchise system? And it's a lot of it still rooted in that, hey, I care about another human and I would love to see them have success. And I've had success in this. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. So why don't we put that all together?
And you're always around smart, successful people, right? I mean,
Yes.
you had referenced literally as we were driving over here today with one of your franchisor clients, just the energy that came from that franchise and the kind of the community and the culture.
So passionate. Like it was definitely to that point, it was a discussion about strategic growth and where are we going to go in the next year and what everyone is passionate about and creating that mission statement in and around what's going to drive us to the next thing. And every person on the Zoom screen is just very passionate about the service that they're delivering. And I think you and I had talked about this. I went into what is a discovery day, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. Right. But you go in and the energy fills your bucket and you're glad to be in the mix of those people. And it just is a good time had by all.
Yeah, it is great. It really, I think just that energy and being around like-minded, successful, driven people who are looking to have a lot of fun, but again, the overall control of this.
And it kind of squashes the fear, like we were talking on the last
Right.
episode, right? Like if you didn't have fear, I would be concerned. If you were
Yes.
talking to me about buying something or moving in that direction or taking the leap on yourself,
Yes.
then you should have that fear. But being a part of the franchising industry at large, like, yes, we have titles, yes, we have division, but at the end of the day, we're here to be everybody's cheerleader for that same success.
Exactly. And guess what? Coming up
What?
next, we get our first guest on the
Yeah,
show.
very good friend of
I
ours.
am so excited, and to have her come on, and again, same thing, hear about her journey in working for franchisors,
Yeah.
and now she's about to become a franchisee, almost ready to
I
open.
know,
I'm so
super excited,
I know,
yeah.
super cool. So our guest, Stephanie Ruby, is next here on the Franchising 360 show. Welcome back to the Franchising 360 show. We are excited, just giddy. We have our very first franchise friend joining us today. It is the amazing Stephanie Ruby. Stephanie has been one of the top franchise development professionals for over a decade. She's helped several franchise brands grow and expand due to her amazing efforts. Stephanie is now taking all of this knowledge she's gained over the years and decided to become a franchise owner for herself. And she is set to launch her franchise here in Tampa very, very soon. Stephanie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Everything you said is true, by the way.
Yeah,
Top developer, amazing. Yes. So flattery gets you everywhere.
And thanks for the money you gave me to say all of that
You're
stuff.
welcome.
So
You're welcome.
appreciate that. Tell us, franchising is all about the people, you know this, right? Like, how did you get started into this crazy world?
So I had a baby, and I was in retail weight loss, right? And so it was running multiple weight loss centers, 18 employees, women range from 18 to their 50s. And I just remember being pregnant, being like, I can't go back to that. I couldn't. They didn't even have daycares open the hours that I was working because it was so extensive. And so when I was on maternity leave, I was just going through Indeed, and I was click applying for recruiter jobs. Because all I know is I sound good on the phone. That's all I knew. And so I was like, oh, I'll do this recruiter thing. Clicked on a job. It was my old boss at the time, Dana, brought me in. And I think I was even late for the interview. It was the only interview I was ever late for. I was like, I don't believe him. But he said, you talk to these people and you make sure it's the right fit. And then eventually they buy a franchise and you can have weekends off. And I was like, okay. But apparently it's a thing. And so that was 2010. I was with that company for 4 years. Then I went to, where did I go at that time? Senior placement, then junk calling, where your partner and our paths crossed at that point. And then after that, I got into pest control, and now I'm with a Biohazard and trauma cleanup franchise.
Awesome. Which is one of the fun things about franchising is people they own a franchise that they have little to no experience in, right? And your current one, and we'll go ahead and give a shout out to Bio1, right, is the name of the franchise. Not a lot of people sit around like as children going, Mommy, Daddy, someday I want to clean up crime scenes. That sounds amazing. Yet
And if they do, it's weird.
Right.
They do, it's really weird, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's a thing, right? So what is, and again, I think this can come with a lot of franchises, but what's a reason somebody might want to own a franchise like that?
For that particular franchise, really the common denominator is people want to give back. They want to make a difference in the community. They want to bring closure to families. Our whole thing is about compassion, discretion, and care. So when a family goes through trauma, we really prevent them from having to deal with the situation. They should never have to.
Yeah.
So we come in the back end and we handle certain situations, and we're the type of company we hope people don't ever need to know about us.
Right. Don't need to know. But again, when you think of, as you said that, you didn't talk about anybody having skills in crime scene cleanup or biohazard, right? We don't need extensive knowledge of watching Breaking Bad for years.
No.
Caring, compassion, making a difference, things like that, really the big driver for owners, for you guys.
100%. And there's a reality. I mean, and I think you guys can probably agree for a lot of brands, especially home services, because that's what I've been in for so long. The business is the business.
Right.
The widget, that might be different, but business ownership is business ownership. And it's the same activity that makes you successful in one industry that'll make you successful in another. So it's just finding the right one for you.
And we talked a few weeks ago on here about the importance of a plan, right? The franchise has one. Is that how important is that to you, looking at your role right now is to find new franchise owners and make sure it's the right match, right? how important is that you determine somebody can actually follow and will follow a plan?
Oh, it's almost everything, right? I mean, it's such a big part of it. How many times have we said over the years in this industry, well, you have to follow the plan. Well,
Right.
what's the plan, right? Well, the marketing, the strategy, the hiring, the staffing, the showing up
Right.
on a daily basis, right? So that's a huge part of what we do, is making sure that somebody can follow plan and make sure it's a good fit on few different levels.
That could be different plans for, I mean, you've been to different franchise
Yeah.
brands, right? Junk hauling is a different plan than pest control versus biohazard versus senior, but it's still the importance of just like, I mean, it's almost like be a little dumb, right? I like,
Yeah. Part of it is the trust factor, right?
Right.
So when you have somebody that's at a point in their lives where they can afford to purchase a franchise and take that next level out of corporate America, sometimes there's that trust level where it's like, I know I just signed up for this plan,
Right.
but now you need to trust the process to follow the process.
right. And behind the process is the people, right?
Yep.
And so having that connection between you as the potential franchise owner and that franchise brand, the people, all of those things is hugely important, right?
Everything. I mean, I couldn't work for a brand if I didn't believe in the back end of what the people I was placing were getting, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Support, operations, everything.
So quick question before
Yeah.
we go to break. Sometimes there's a myth or a perception, oh, you're just trying to sell me that franchise, Stephanie. You don't really care about anything. Is that true?
No, I would say franchise development is almost an anti-sale, because you need to get to know them. You need to make sure it's the right fit. You also need to make sure they're fully aware of what they're getting into on the other side. But there's also the fact that sometimes you need to protect people from themselves. And just because they can write a check doesn't mean they're going to be a good fit for the brand.
Yeah.
Maybe they might be a fit for another brand, but culturally, behaviorally, it just might not be the fit for
So you've been on, right? So you've been on that side of helping people figure out, right? Is that the right match, both sides? But when we come back, I want to talk about your journey into becoming a franchise owner. Super
100%.
scary and exciting. That's next with Stephanie Ruby here on the Franchising 360 show. Welcome back to the Franchising 360 show. Tonight we've got our guest, Stephanie Ruby, joining us. So we just talked about, Stephanie, your journey and experience working for a franchisor in the franchise development, trying to help find amazing new franchise owners. But now you are a franchise owner.
Yep.
Amazing or not, still yet to be determined, but I've got confidence in you.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Right? So first of all, what made you think, okay, now's the time for me to be a franchise owner as well?
It was actually my sister. So let me, for the record, right? So all the owners I've placed over the years, there was always a little bit of jealousy, because it's, they have an opportunity. It's
Right.
an opportunity. And so trying to make a long story short, but my brother passed away a few years ago. And my brother was an equity share owner of a major franchise, fitness franchise. I'll leave names out for the sake of a few different reasons. And when he passed, he was in what I would say is conflict with his partner over his ownership shares. And so then when my brother passed, my sister and I picked up the fight. It wasn't a short fight. And then when we got through fight one, for the sake of my brother's estate, I hate that term, by the way, it just means people are after your stuff after you're gone. But when that was said and done, and then we got through the rest of the estate stuff, what was left, my sister and I were it came to us, lack of a better way to put it. And so there was just enough left, right? You could do something with it, or we could blow through it quickly, which I'm still tempted to, right? But my sister calls me one day. She says, why don't we buy a coffee franchise? Being in franchise for so long, I was like, I don't know if that's a good one. Why don't we talk to a franchise consultant friend of mine?
Thanks for calling me.
I knew that was going to come up.
Right? Well,
I knew it was
wasted
a while
our
ago. It was a
first
while
guest
ago.
on somebody that,
I know.
okay, whatever. Anyway.
So I introduced her. I didn't want any part of it because my life was really easy at the time. Those few moments where everything is just golden.
Right.
But I said, I'll invest with you, but you talk to these brands, or talk to this consultant. He introduced her to these brands, and she wanted me on the calls. Fast forward, I am not a silent partner.
You're
Shocker.
never silent.
I'm never silent, despite against my family's wishes sometimes. But yeah. So that's kind of how we fell into it. And so it's been a long journey, but we're up to the point where it's happening. It's happening.
I know. So we are owners of
Image Studios, Salon
And
Suite franchise.
I was going to say, so tell everybody what Image Studios is.
Yeah, so essentially we build out a large space, if you will, and we put mini suites in it for stylists, estheticians, tattoo artists. They essentially come in and they rent a space from us on a weekly basis. So they become their own little business owners underneath the rooms and support we provide. What's really, really cool is it's just an extension of what I already do, because I'm like, I still get to place people into business, which is what I love doing.
Yeah. So again, so that was one of the reasons. What were maybe something else you and your sister, you're like, oh, it's because again, there's 4,500 stinking franchises.
Yeah.
And you guys got to the point where you're like, yes, this is it. So it fit you from a recruiting standpoint. What were a couple other things that really kind of meshed for you guys?
Culture was big. Even when I started looking at Image, I'm like, I'm not buying an Image because it wasn't the cheapest one we were looking at. But because of my industry, I promised myself that out of respect for the developers I was working with, I was like, I'll go through validation. You know, I'll get to the point where I'm talking to franchise owners, because that's what it really comes down to. And when I started going through the validation process with Image and I started to learn about the culture, and I removed the actual financial upfront cost, still an investment, but when I removed that, knowing that it's something that we could make happen, I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is where we're supposed to be. And it checks all the other boxes of, I can still keep my job.
Yes.
And I'm not going to say part-time, right? It's your life, it's your investment, but it's something that I can work in my life. My life allows me to work it still. And so and the money we've got, there's going to be good money too.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and always, I think the money follows the fit in franchising, right?
100%.
Once you find that. So you are getting close to being open, right? And so anybody in the Tampa area,
St. Pete, downtown St. Pete,
awesome area as well. That's coming around Thanksgiving-ish,
should
right?
be our launch.
So this is a big real estate play. So there's a lot to this. This is not a quick, easy open. What was maybe the biggest challenge you guys have had to overcome?
Yeah, the biggest one is the building we picked. So we did everything that we said we wouldn't do. We fell in love with the prime location.
Oh, Stephanie,
on the
you
prime
know
corner.
better.
I know. But we fell in love. Wait till you see it. It's beautiful. Okay. We have walls and we have patios and we even have floors now, stairs. It's great. So what was the question again? I completely zoned.
What was your biggest challenge?
Oh, the building. So going back to that, it was a 100-year-old building. We're going in on the second floor, but downtown St. Pete, right on Central Ave, right? But ultimately, because the building was so old, when they went in to redo a lot of stuff, they pretty much had to redo the whole building.
Pesky asbestos.
We went to see the property
Dead
one day.
bodies in the wall. So you called
Bio
Bio1,
could
right?
have come in.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we have a brand new build but what's cool is we locked in our rates a couple of years ago. Now look at what St. Pete's going through with the stadium and the high rises. And so we ultimately benefit from the delay. So things work out when they should and as they should, even if it doesn't feel like it at the time. But
so location for Image Studios.
Yeah.
So has that helped you as a franchise owner now have those conversations with prospective franchise owners?
Oh, for sure. How can it not, right? Especially the fear roller coaster. I get it. But what's on the other side?
Right.
Like, what if you take this? I get it's scary and the 99-1, right? We all know that. But what if you take this step and you actually excel and you go to the next level? I know.
Right.
So.
Crazy. Right. All the things, all the control, the freedom, flexibility. And again, fantact. So I'm super excited I can't wait to go down there and get my hair did at Image Studios. So Stephanie, thank you so much for not just coming on. You've been a friend for both of us for forever, but actually being the first guest, you sucker.
Yes!
So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me.
So we'll be back on the Franchising 360 show right after this. Welcome back to the Franchising 360 show. Sitting with me again is Danielle Wright. Hi. Welcome
Glad to
back.
see you. It feels like so long.
I know I've missed you terribly. Danielle, what about our amazing guest today, Stephanie Ruby?
She was the best guest.
She is clearly the best one we've ever had on this show.
Low bar.
Well, but whatever. But no, you and I have known Stephanie for a long time.
She actually, funny story, took over for a franchise brand that I was working with for a period of time. Like, there was some people in between. That's a long story, but that's how we first met.
Yeah. And again, franchising, it's always about the people, and it's amazing. We talk about at the beginning of the show why people get in and they stay in it for
Yep.
so long. I mean, how many amazing, well, I feel like I'm using that word too much, but amazing people in this industry that we have known and got to be friends with.
It just goes back to the testament of like, it's not just about a brand. It's not just about a business. It's really about creating a family and a culture. And she did mention culture. And
Yeah.
that's something that I'm with her equal. Like, we get involved with franchises that really have a passion, a mission, and stand true to who they are. And that really determines your success. And I'm sure that's something on your side of the coin that you look at from, hey, where do I place people? What type of personality, what type of culture do they want? And culture is really a tag line for a lot of things.
It gets used too much sometimes, all
but
buzzwordy.
it does make sense. If you haven't found your people, as we like to say, then it's not the right fit for you.
And we've seen time and time again on both sides of what we've done, the opportunities it's allowed people to create this life for them. I mean, really, again, it's cheesy, but it is life changing. And whether it's friendships, sometimes people meet in this industry and get married, and or get businesses and are really able to grow it. So super cool with that. But that connection, again, when we talk about on one of our next episodes, the industry and does that matter, and some of the kind of the myth.
She really did speak to that, didn't she?
Right.
Like, recruitment is her background, similar to you. Like,
right, exactly.
Isn't that what you kind of did for a little bit of time? So I think we are all looking to try to help people have those connections and make those pieces come together.
Yes.
So
yeah, very good. And so we are like super excited also because we had another person. We get to send out another one of these to a listener or watcher that had I guess they had to do both, probably technically watch and at least listen. But we've got a question we need to address.
We do. And it's from a viewer named Henry in Florida. He asked, why should I work with someone to help me find a franchise business?
Well, Henry, that is an amazing question. And I always tell people, because they'll ask us and our team at Fran Coach, this is what we do, is help people find the best franchise dough. And I'm like, well, first, maybe you shouldn't, right? But that's
Stephanie said the same thing, right? So
that's okay.
She'd rather blow her money than...
right. But it's again, I think it's because it's not what it appears to be. It's not like we find everything else in life. Like Stephanie talked about, how did she find her first job in franchising? Well, she's on Indeed and I got recruiting experience, so I'm going to look for that. She found the job. That job just happened to be in franchising.
Yes.
What connected her and her sister for that franchise had nothing to do with industry background.
No.
Right. And so somebody like our team, we're able to help you really understand those intangible pieces, what you're like, what are your core values, and again, that's the buzzy culture. But like, how are you going to align with people in that franchise?
And then how we've started is, how does that franchise also support you?
Right.
Like, are they really holding your hand? And she said her building 100 years old.
Right.
I would have never. Now I have a commercial real estate background, so that might have crossed my mind, but really you don't know until you get into it. And how much did they work with her during that? Like, more importantly, did they have the right vendors to support her in that? Like, how do you asbestos? Well, how do you get rid of that? Like, what do you do? And how long does that derail your project? So I'm sure with that franchise specifically, we're both familiar with them, that they were holding their hands through the whole entire thing. It's not a small feat to make sure that someone can get launched successfully.
No. And like we talked in the last episode about the importance of the plan and following it, but every franchise has a plan, but they're human, right? So they may be a little stronger in one area than another. So you also have to understand, where do I need the most support? So if you are starting a franchise like that with your commercial real estate background, you might not need as much as somebody coming in going, holy crap, I have no clue how to be able to find that.
And I only know a small portion of those things, right? Even if you do, I'm not going to negate that having some industry knowledge can be important, and you kind of identify with that. So I've worked with someone that he's a human resources background, recruiting background, and most of the time, like you say, we're generally putting them with brands that have nothing to do with their experience, but some people really do truly love what they do and then just want to do it for themselves. And so I don't want anyone to think that you can't choose a business that
it does happen. It's just, it's not it's really rare when it's, I've always done this, therefore I own the franchise.
And I should always do this.
Right.
But that's also an open mind piece too.
Right.
And that's something that I think you do in your world
Right.
with
It's
people.
it's a chance to kind of like really create your next path and really
Yes.
like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right.
And to Henry's question, I think it's really important to work with someone because you may not necessarily know what, as you
Exactly.
say, gets you out of bed. And
Yep.
you can challenge us and ask questions and really kind of get to the root of what inspires us every day.
Yes, exactly. And this is kind of this question from Henry. And again, Henry, enjoy your mug. If you want to ask a question, thefranchisingshow.com, send it in. We'll be more than happy to ask it and answer it on the air. And next week is really kind of a series of some questions that we have that are kind of myths and misconceptions.
Yeah.
So
It's like a myth buster
it is a myth
and an FAQ all rolled into one.
busting FAQ. So really don't miss it next Friday. Until then, that is Danielle Wright.
That is me.
And I am Tim Parmeter.
That is him.
And this is the Franchising 360 Show.